All right, let us dive in. Okay, welcome and thanks so much for being here. This is week 1 of Money Foundations. So we'll be going over our understanding your finances. And if you don't mind, well, there we go. I'm just going to mute folks for right now. You can most certainly unmute yourself to ask questions by all means, but just so we don't have a bunch of feedback. Yay, welcome, Joanne. Thanks so much. So this is a 3-part series. We'll talk a little bit more about what the other 2 workshops will be, but this is the first of 3, so welcome. I'm really excited to dive into this content with you guys. And just a brief agenda, what we'll be going over today. We'll do some introductions. For some of you, we have not met, and so I want to make sure you know who I am. I'm going to talk a little bit about Opportunities Credit Union, which is a local, really dope credit union here in Burlington, Vermont, and in Winooski. So I want to make you aware of that if you are in the Vermont area. We'll go over some money stories. So I just wanted to lay the foundation of we're all coming from different lived experiences and different relationships to money. And I think not touching on that is a mistake sometimes in these types of financial workshops, not taking into account, what kinds of experiences you've had with money and the stories you've learned about money. So we'll take a little pit stop to talk about that. Then we'll go through the 4 different financial statements that this specific workshop is focused on. So we'll look at a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, a budget, and cash flow projections. And then I've got a little bit of homework for you to walk away with today, so you can hopefully start to implement some of this work into your daily, weekly, monthly routines. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Emily. I am an anti-capitalist business coach locally in Burlington, Vermont, although I work mostly online. And so I've got clients all over the country, which is fun. And I'm also the business sense manager at Opportunities Credit Union. So I'll tell you a little bit about the Business Sense program, and then we'll dive right into our content. So the Business Sense program at Opportunities is a brand new program. It just started last year. We were fortunate to get a 4-year grant to run this program. And essentially what I do is offer workshops and one-on-one sessions with folks through this program. It's all completely free to Vermont residents. So if you are in Vermont and you are a business owner, you can access these resources. And even if you're not in Vermont, you can access all of our virtual resources. And so our main goal is to just help folks improve their financial literacy skills. So most of us get into business because we love what we do, which you're about to tell me in a second what it is you do. Most of us don't get into business because we're like, oh, I love business and I love finances and spreadsheets. Although maybe some of you feel that way, which is hooray, go you. But yeah, so a lot of us are really in it to do our craft and do what we love. And that means we also have to learn all these other skills along the way. And so the Business Sense program is really designed to help you increase that financial literacy, feel really confident in, if you wanted to take out a small business loan, or if you want to get an investor, or you want to sell your business, or you simply are just trying to figure out how much money do I need to make every month inside the business to make ends meet. We're here to help with all of those kinds of things. So feel free to reach out anytime, and I'll leave you with my contact information at the end of this. But if you're looking for some financial counseling, definitely reach out. Let us know. We're happy to help. Okay, so today, this is, like I said, a 3-part series. We're going to meet every Tuesday for the next 3 weeks. Hopefully you have signed up for all 3, but if you haven't, you can sign up for the other ones now. The first one today, we'll be looking at some of there are these 4 common reports that many of you have probably either heard of these names, or maybe you've been asked to create one of these reports, especially if you are looking for a small business loan, you're definitely going to get asked for these reports. And for some of us, myself included, even before teaching this workshop, right before teaching this workshop, I was like, what's the difference between these 4 things? These are kind of confusing. They kind of seem like they're all the same, but maybe a little different. And also, I don't know how to create any of them. So, and there's a lot of resources out there on the internet. Just in the short amount of Googling I did, it was pretty overwhelming, the amount of support you can receive on these types of reports. So what I did was try to kind of distill some of that information down for us today, and just give us a starting place to look at these numbers and to start making more sense of this. Next week, we'll look at cash flow projections. So that's what the last report that we'll talk about today is a cash flow projection. So I'm not going to get super deep into it. We're actually going to take that one and bring it to next week. And next week, we'll be talking about cash flow projections, but also how to alter cash flow projections. So like, let's say you did the cash flow projection and you're like, ew, that doesn't look good, Emily. Like, I need more cash to be coming in. We're going to create some space next week to really process how do I increase sales? If sales are kind of low or slow, how do I adjust that, right? Like, how do I be an active participant in my sales pipeline? So we'll talk a little bit about that next week. And then the third week, we'll be talking about how to pay yourself. And so we've got a 6-step process that we're going to analyze 4 different factors, and we're going to figure out exactly how much should you be paying yourself, either weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever it is you want. Ideally, I would love for you to have a salary that you can count on and automatically goes into your checking account each, every other week or every month. And so we'll talk about how to figure out those numbers. Cool. All right. I would love to get to know you a little bit. So when you get a sec, if you can tell us in the chat, obviously it will show your name, so don't feel like you have to write that again. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your business and what you're most like, what brought you here? What are you excited to learn? Why did you sign up for either this session specifically or all 3? And yes, Joanne, right? Wouldn't that be amazing? A salary? I remember when I first started paying myself like an actual salary, I was like, holy shit, this is cool. I was like, I feel so like professional now, which is fun. So yes, we will get you there. But let us know in the chat who you are, a little bit about your business. It would also be really helpful for me to know if you're like a product-based business or if you're a service provider. Do you have a physical location? That'll give me an idea to just kind of like the types of examples and expenses we're going to be thinking about as we move through these reports. Some of these reports will be more complicated for some and really, really simple for others, just kind of depending on what else you've got going on in the business. You also may hear my 5-month-old in the background. Let us know in the chat. Awesome. Joanne, leadership. I was like, I know these are going to come in quickly. Leadership and negotiation coach. Yep. Service-based and developing products to add. Had a location pre-pandemic. Yep. Serving local and global clients. Now just virtual, which feels better. Awesome. Kara, your business is Seed and Spiral. Ooh, love the name. Working on the intersections of racial equity and environmental justice. Very cool. Facilitate online and in-person workshops, retreats, and classes. Here to learn it all. I love it. Cool. Liz, private practice, relationship therapy, and independent contractor. Awesome. An American Sign Language English interpreter. Really cool. Jen Daniels, you feel empowered when you can strategically engage in your finance side and when I future think in my business. So you need to understand. Yes, got it. I have 2 businesses, conflict transformation, and hemp CBD business. Cool, cool. Hi, Maris. Hello. DEI education business and reimagination coaching business. Yep, awesome. Excited to learn the most painless way to manage reports and lists. Cool. Yeah, we're going to talk about there's some like truly painless ways to go about this that you do have to pay for. And so we'll look at those. And then we'll also look at some like maybe slightly more painful ways to go about this or more labor intensive ways to go about this that are free. So I brought both of those to the table for us. Miranda, awesome, owner of Ditto Historical, an accessories line inspired by the American Revolution. I'll be launching in June. And you've worked a lot with budgets and managing money for museums, but this is your first foray into owning your own business. Okay, cool. I love that. Awesome. If you're still typing, still continue on. I'm going to keep moving us through, but please keep introducing yourselves, keep talking, keep chatting. And so I mentioned in the beginning that we're going to touch a little bit here. I like to kind of set some foundation, some groundwork for this conversation as we start to move through. I'm just curious, has anyone felt like their blood pressure rise or feel stressed just already in these 14 minutes we've started? I'm just curious. Okay. Yeah. It's totally cool. I know some people are laughing, smiling. I'm yes, maybe that is possibly you. Even myself, I notice I'm talking a little bit faster than I usually do. We all have stories around money and worth and our ability to make money, our capacity to make money. And that is held in our body a lot of the time, right? And not just in our head. And so I really want to encourage you today, regardless of how you have learned about money in the past, do yourself a favor and just keep taking some deep breaths as we move through this stuff, and notice if you're starting to tune out. Notice if you start multitasking, or if you start ignoring me, or if you start if you're having a hard time even understanding what I'm saying or paying attention. I encourage you to just kind of tap into that a little bit and just observe that. I think it's super common, and at least in financial workshops I've been in, I often feel like the business acumen level is way up here and I'm down here, and I end up just leaving the workshop feeling stupid. And that's not a really fun place to operate from. And so I want to encourage you to just speak up, share in the group, try to be present, and know that some of this is going to take some time to cover, and that's okay. So like I said, we're all entering this conversation from different places. And these workshops really are meant to welcome people at any level of comfort or discomfort with finances and money. Thanks, Jen. Jen said, I love that you're giving this workshop. Yes. And I love that, Joanne, that you're feeling actually a sense of relief that maybe you'll finally understand this and it'll make sense and feel good. And that's my hope for us today, that we'll walk away with at least just a little bit more comfort around this topic. So I wanted to ask you, you can feel free to unmute yourself. You can throw it in the chat, whatever feels easily accessible to you. But what are some things you were taught either explicitly or implicitly about money? Are there any sentences, stories, things that pop up for you around money? And it can be personal finances, or it can be business, whatever's coming to you.
I can share.
Yeah, go for it. Do you mind introducing yourself for the group?
Sure.
Just real quick.
I'm Kara. And, the biggest thing is sort of a general sense. I grew up in a quite religious context, and my parents were pastors of a church. And so service was very important. And honestly, it felt like I got this message that having money was not okay, that it was morally wrong.
Yeah.
That I was just supposed to give it away if I got it, and that we were supposed to just have enough, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. Thanks for sharing. What else? What else comes up for folks? Yeah, go for it, Jen.
I think that it's more now that I'm engaged as a business person, which is more in the last 5 years, and how my 3 teenagers are reacting and showing me how I relate to money. All 3 of them, because we're struggling more, because we took huge risks and we don't have 9-to-5 jobs, which we're happy about. They all now have a much better sense of what a dollar means. They all want jobs or either have jobs. They're 16 and 14. So I think in reflection, it's oh, I had a job when I was growing up, but I'm just more aware. I'm mature. I can reflect. So I'm seeing it through their eyes. And I'm sort of excited about what they're going to do. So that's what I would share.
I love that. Nice modeling. Any other stories, thoughts, things that come up?
I can share.
Yeah.
I grew up in a household that didn't have a lot of financial security. And so there was always very implicit conversations about money. And I find that what we didn't talk about was investment. Everything was focused on just saving, or is this a good deal? Even if you were buying lots of junk, it's a good deal. And so I've been, trying to find that balance of what do I believe in, what do I want to put money towards, and what is that amount that I'm comfortable with, and how do I look beyond just a dollar value into what it's bringing to my business or to my life. But it's been a big process.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Something that comes up for me, I'll share, this has come up a lot since I use the title anti-capitalist in my like signature, and that's the type of coach I identify as. And whenever people ask me how much it is to work with me and I share the price, they're like, well, you're not an anti-capitalist then. Like, if you were really an anti-capitalist, your coaching should be free. And so there's kind of similar, I think it was Kara was sharing, similar to that angle of like, if you're doing good work, it shouldn't cost anything. Or if you really, really care about people, you should just do it out of the goodness of your heart. And that's something that I've really had to work on and struggled with, of like, yeah, sure, I'd love to like work. I'd love to give all of my services away for free. And I work really hard to find ways to do that. But I also, all of us we all live in a capitalist economy, and capitalist economies require money to live in. And so, yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation. It's one that's worth exploring every so often, of like, yeah, exactly, Joanne. Unfortunately, I can't feed myself or my house with good vibes. I also need some money. But yeah, I think it's as you start to move through these financial decisions and these reports and considerations, especially when we start thinking, I think a lot of this will come up in the next workshop around cash flow projections. And for some of us, we can find a way to get comfortable with where we are right this second, but then anticipating and thinking futuristically and taking risks without necessarily, entrepreneurship does not come with a big safety net, right? And so when we're starting to think about taking these big leaps and making these financial decisions, it can bring up a lot of these stories in us that we learned as we were growing up, and also just through relationships we've experienced. And so I really encourage you to kind of touch on that as you're going through this process, instead of glossing over them and continuing to live in a story that's maybe not necessarily serving you anymore. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys sharing. And then the second question I have along this vein is, where do you want to go with this? How do you want to feel about your ability to make money in the business, your relationship with money? Yeah, what do you want your relationship with money to look like or feel like? Yeah, go, Jen.
So I've been running a business we're in our 5th year, and I've been running it with my husband partner, and we're really good together because he's actually more of the CFO, and he does it really well. But because of that, I am here. I don't get to engage in that. And to my point earlier, I do know, and we know this statistically, that women are less engaged on this side in a really empowered way, even though we all know we're smart and we can do this. So with this next phase of business, which is actually really my heart center, and it engages decades of learning prior to the hemp business, I am here deliberately because it will just be me. And so I want to own and use that thinking, like, how much do I need to make? What's good enough? How will that support my family? And also, and I think this is why I'm happy you're teaching it, is what does it look like from an anti-capitalist perspective as we all
Yeah.
engage in banking that's very capitalist centered? So
Yeah.
those are all the things I'm thinking about. So thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for sharing. Maris.
Yeah, two things came to mind for me. The first is I want my relationship to feel really organized. I don't want it to feel, like I don't want it to feel like I'm actively using critical thinking skills to deal with it. I want it to be
I
like,
love that.
more machine-like. I want to put it into the machine part of my brain and use everything else for like the good juicy stuff.
Mm.
And then the second one is my dream about making money. One of my dreams is I don't believe that we should work every year of our lives. I think that's kind of an insane proposition. And I'm in a partnership with someone and I don't want us to just be a double income family. I want us to be able to provide sabbaticals for each other instead of
I love
expecting
that.
double income. So that's my dream.
I love that. Thanks so much for sharing. Thanks for also like helping me dream by sharing. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Go ahead, Liz.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I can relate to so much of what has been shared so far, but I think one of my, and I love what you just shared, Marissa, about that idea of being able to give each other sabbaticals and support each other that way. Yeah, I think I struggle, and I guess for the future, I really want to feel a lot of my mind space is taken up with crunching numbers and worrying about next year or 5 years from now or like next month. You know, and I also find myself in sort of quote unquote like helping professions that are really you know, and like you said when we started, you know, the reason I got into both of the fields that I'm in is because it really I really connected with it, not because I was you know, looking to you know, have a lot of wealth. And so, but the older I get, the more I feel like I'm behind. I get the feeling is I feel like I'm chasing something that maybe isn't actually generationally like exists anymore. And
yes, that is very accurate.
I guess I don't want to be chasing, like I really want to feel like I can be present more, but I feel like I'm always trying to crunch the numbers for next week or for tomorrow or for next year. And I really want to like live more presently. But the financial piece constantly pulls me out of the present moment because it's just always knocking at the door. And so that's a dream I have. And I do hope to one day be able to not work so much. I think part of your piece about capitalism really resonated too. I feel like I'm just always working. And part of it is because I love it, but part of it is because I'm really nervous about, you know, and part of it's paying off student loans and like this debt economy that has been created. And so anyway, I want to just be more present. And that's sort of my dream for myself, as simple as that sounds.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it, Liz. Tierney, I'm just going to read yours for folks that are catching the replay. You said similar to Liz, wanting to find a balance. You also employ 8 to 10 people and want to make sure that they're taken care of while also taking care of yourself and your family. Yeah, 100%. Just show of hands, I'm curious, how many folks have employees? Yeah, a couple. Yeah, that like adds a whole nother element, right? Of like, not only do I have to think about myself, but I'm also thinking about these other folks who are depending on me for their livelihood. And something, Liz, you were saying of like, I just feel like I'm working so much. I was sharing with a friend. It saddened me very much today. She asked me if we could get lunch in the next week. And I was like, I actually do not have a free hour to get lunch right now. Like I'm working, my May is booked solid all the way through in anticipation of my second baby starting daycare next month. And yeah, and the expense is just like rocking us, you know, and that's like it's unfortunate to have, I don't enjoy the motivator for working and earning to pay bills, you know, like it's not a great motivator for me. It's one that I often resist, actually. But yeah, so we'll talk. I'm always here to talk about this stuff. I know this session isn't designed specifically for, you know, resisting capitalism in our businesses, although we could totally have that workshop. But, you know, I think what I keep reminding myself, and I hope this is a helpful reminder for you all, is we can find ways to resist the system that we're currently living in that is not designed to support us by any means, and also simultaneously build strategies to help us navigate the system we are living, right? And so it's both and, right? Like we can find ways to resist, and we can also find ways to manage living in this system, because even if you don't agree with capitalist values, you're still living in a capitalist economy. And so we have to figure that out, right? We got to figure out kind of how do I make the best of the situation I have while actively still living within my values. And I really do think we can do that. I am a pessimist about many things, but that is not one of them. I do think we can find a way to kind of balance those two things together. So thank you so much for everyone that shared. I really appreciate that. It does mean a lot. And I know it can be a vulnerable share. So yeah, I don't take that lightly. This is one of my favorite sayings, and it's something I tell myself every single time I'm resisting looking at my finances. What you pay attention to grows. This is true in anything in life. So if you pay attention to the blueberry bushes you planted this weekend, they will grow, right? If you pay attention to your anxieties and you just live in that shit, they will grow, right? Those anxieties will continue to grow. And this is not to say that like everything is 100% mindset, because by all means it is not. There are things like privilege and racism and sexism, and all of those things are playing a part in our lived experiences and what we have access to. And at the same time, there are certain things that we can control. And I hope that this is one that we can kind of focus on. So if we want our financial literacy to grow, we need to pay attention to it. If we want money in the business to grow, we need to pay attention to it, right? We need to pay attention to how the money is flowing through the business in order to be able to change any of those trajectories. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I would say, like, if you took away one thing from all of these workshops, it's that I want you to set a reoccurring money date. It's a time that you sit down. I do it with a glass of wine and like really nice chocolates from New Chocolate. If you're not a Vermont person, you might not know New, but they're amazing. Like, make it fancy, make it fun. You could do it with a friend. But setting, turning, kind of what Maris was saying, if we can turn some of these aspects into habit, into repetition, into just like a norm, that you're just constantly, it's almost like going to the gym each week, or, doing your weekly meal prep on Sunday, right? Like, if we can turn this into just another habit instead of this like huge colossal event that we have to like get ourselves all jazzed to go do, it's a lot easier for us to engage in it, and then a lot easier for us to create some momentum behind it. And so what I want to encourage you today is, I would actually really like you to tell the group in the chat by the end of this session, what is your your monthly money date? Like, tell us the actual date of the next time you are going to go look at your financial numbers and put it in the calendar. Oh, the money date's with yourself, girl. Yeah, this is you, and it's your money date is your date with you and your money, right? Like, you are looking at your financials. Yeah, go for it, Liz.
So because part of when I see this, I'm like, I do this like every day. Like, it's almost too much.
Oh, so I was going to say, we might have too many money dates.
Yeah, like I'm always checking my bank account. I'm always doing the math of like,
Yep.
okay, these people pay me and invoice me on time versus, and I'm always sitting down doing that. So I'm wondering if you're suggesting once a month, one time.
If you feel like you really need to have more of a pulse than once a month, I would be cool with like every other week. This was actually an exercise. I don't know if my partner is going to enjoy me sharing this, but this was an exercise my partner had to like divorce from looking at our credit cards statement. He would look at it every single day. And all it did was provide an enormous amount of anxiety. The numbers are not going to change, right? Like we look at our budget together every month and we look at our expenses and all of that. You shouldn't need to be looking at your financials every single day. My guess is that's taking up a lot of time and bandwidth in your brain that might be better spent like actually going and making more money or taking a nap or going for a walk or petting a cute dog. I don't know, anything, like literally anything. Go do anything else other than that. And so, yeah, and if you feel like you need to wean, Liz, which is like legit a thing, you don't have to like cold turkey yourself. If you want to like go down to 1 day a week, like on Thursdays, I look at my financials and then every other week, and then maybe it is once a month. We're not all the same, so it can be, whatever is going to work for you. But yeah, I think a little less might actually, that was a really good question. Thanks. Look at all these dates. I love this. You guys are killing it. Okay, we've got the third Wednesday of every month, the second Friday of every month, the third Friday of every month. I love this. And I really do encourage you to like try to make this enjoyable. Your brain is very smart. And if you try to attach like really pleasurable things to it, it's going to be more likely to want to do it with you. So yeah, make it fun. Like maybe you go out to a nice restaurant and like get a glass of wine at the bar, or you go to your favorite tea shop to do it. Or, you get cozy on the couch and Gilmore Girls are playing in the background. Clearly, I'm thinking of all the ways I would do money date. You all can come up with something creative too. Ren, yeah, you said you do this every 2 weeks while invoicing. Love it. Kearney, yours will rotate monthly depending on when your business partner is available, but shooting for a mid-month brunch and crunch. Ooh, I like that. Nice term. Love it. Okay, cool. All right. How are we doing? We're getting there. Okay, so today what I want to do is just give you some tools. And my hope is that you will have between now and next week, or even the week after, you'll have some time to put some numbers into these tools. So we're not going to do the actual homework right now. More, I want to just kind of show you these documents, show you what it might look like to use them. I'm going to show you one other tool as well that I really enjoy. And then over the next 2 weeks, my hope is that our next 2 sessions become a little bit more workshop-y. So less me talking the whole time and more you showing up and being like, okay, Emily, I filled out this report. Here's what it says. What do we think about that? Right. And we can start to make some strategic decisions based on that. Okay. That being said, pause me, stop me if you're like, I have a question, I'm lost, this doesn't make sense, anything like that. And then I just want to give this full disclosure. One of the tools I'm going to show you is called LivePlan. I am a LivePlan affiliate. I do not affiliate for very many things. Only things that I really genuinely enjoy, use myself and or constantly refer to people. This is one of them. I genuinely enjoy this tool. It's been awesome. I like it because I don't really enjoy math and it does all the math for me. And it makes these really pretty charts that make my heart rate lower and my brain feel clearer. So I'm going to share that with you. You can also totally do everything I'm saying. I have free tools for you for today as well for all of the things I'm going to show you. So don't feel like you need to do this. But if you like it, cool. Okay. Whew. I have never used QuickBooks, Joanne, so I can't attest to that. And I don't know that I don't actually think they do the same thing, because there's a big thing on LivePlan's website that says like integrates easily with QuickBooks. So I have a feeling like LivePlan doesn't do like invoicing or I'll show you what it does. It's really just for like financial forecasting and building these documents. These reports. That's essentially what it does. What I've done with most clients with LivePlan is they'll do it for like a month, maybe 2, and then they cancel their subscription. And LivePlan might not enjoy me saying this, but that's usually what I do, is like pay for a month, and it's pretty cheap. It's like $12 or $15, I think. Pay for a month. They also have a 30-day money back guarantee. If you're like, this didn't work for me, I don't like it, you can send it back. And like build out the projections, see what it looks like to look at your money over the course of a year. And hopefully you can make some decisions based on that. And you might just be done with the tool. And that's cool, right? It's it can be a one and done. You don't have to necessarily keep doing this. Yeah. My business is not complicated enough to warrant QuickBooks. I don't do like invoicing. I have no need for a bookkeeper. So that's why I don't have any experience with it. But I do know someone who loves QuickBooks and is very, very good at it. So if you need a referral, happy to pass that along. Okay, so the first statement we're looking at here is called a profit and loss statement. This has many other names. People call it like a P&L sheet or an income statement. These are all the same thing. Yes, I Googled that many, many times to figure that out. And so really what we're looking at here is summarizing your revenue. So the money that's coming in, your costs, and your expenses. And we can talk a little bit about difference between costs and expenses. And this is during a specific period of time. So usually it's like a fiscal year or a quarter that you're looking at. Okay. And you'll have access to all these slides after the presentation. So if I'm moving quickly, not to worry. So really what this statement is showing you, or showing an investor or a bank, is your company's ability or lack thereof to generate profit. That's all we're looking at, right? It's like profit and loss. How much profit's coming in? How much money are you losing based on like cost or expenses? Other things, these are also called like, so if you were working with a bank and they called it one of these other terms, these are all the same exact thing. I would like to add that the reason financial things are so confusing is partially because it helps people keep power in certain places. They want you to feel like you don't understand what's happening. So the more you can understand, the more power you have in these situations. It's really important to find someone you trust if you're trying to like navigate any sort of like small business loan, credit, those types of things. Investors, like definitely reach out to me. Let me know. I'm happy to get you somebody. But again, this is like, if you're like, this is fucking confusing, that's true. It's like meant to be confusing so that you feel like you're struggling. Yes, exactly. Especially if you start talking in the VC world, totally. Okay, so we've got our profit and loss statement. I'm going to pop us out of here and take us over. I've got 2 different ones, and this entire, I'm actually just going to share this with you guys real quick. So this is a whole folder I put together for you guys. Everything in here is going to be view only. So if you're not familiar with that, what you'll do is when you open up the document, it's not going to let you edit anything, right? And so what you'll do is you'll go to File, you'll make a copy, you'll put it in wherever you want in your Google Drive, and you'll make a copy. And when you do that, then you can edit that document. Okay, so you won't be able to edit anything I'm sending to you, but you just make a copy and you'll do that. So I got you 2 that I liked. This one seems to be more simple. And I would say for folks that are like service providers that don't have physical products, like you don't have cost of goods to worry about, if you don't have, a brick and mortar like location or a factory, or, your expenses are probably going to be very simple, right? If you're a service provider, it's kind of like you might have like your website and maybe your email provider, and you're not going to have a ton of things going on. This one might be a little bit more simple for some folks, like versus this is going to give you some opportunities to get a little more complicated if you need that. We all have different businesses and different things that we're working with. But this should give you an idea of some of the expenses. So we looked at, it said costs and expenses. Costs of goods are going to be a little bit different than expenses, right? And we can get even more complicated with costs of goods if we want to, but it might not be necessary or helpful right now. The other option, I was talking to you about Live Plan. What I like about Live Plan is you're going to put all your information in one place, and it's going to make all of these sheets for you that we're talking about all in the same spot. To me, it just makes it a lot easier. And so essentially what you'll do is when you're making a profit and loss statement, you're going to add all of your revenue streams. So anything that makes you money, right? Here, the example I have is, I have this program I run, I have consulting work I do, and I have work I do with Opportunities Credit Union, right? At the time of creating this report, these were the 3 incomes I had. And then I'm adding any direct costs, if I have any personnel. And what's cool is like, this will walk you through, you can have a general cost or you can have a cost specific to a revenue, which is kind of nice. So like, I could argue that like for Made for More, the program I run, my website, my email provider, all of that stuff is actually like only related to that revenue stream, right? Like those aren't, I don't use those tools for my consulting work. So that can be helpful if, let's say I have a couple different revenue streams and I want to know, like, sure, maybe Made for More brings more cash in the door, but it also has higher expenses, right? So it's not necessarily true that that's my most profitable revenue stream. So if I wanted to get kind of more granular like that, that's where this can be, let me move your faces real quick. That can be helpful. And then also if I have, so expenses are going to be things more like rent or lease or my marketing. And what's cool, what I like about Live Plan is you can compare them to other industry standards. So you can see like, you know, let's say I am a jeweler and I'm like, how much do other jewelers spend on marketing? Like on average, right? And so I can start to compare my expenses in marketing to other jewelers. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me exit out of here. You can also add, for those that do have employees, I know some of us have employees, you can add employees here with direct labor or a contract. If you have like a 1099 contract worker, you can add those expenses in here too. And so what it's going to show me is, right, all of my revenue. So all the money that's coming in. I can also at the same time make projections. So I can say, you know, I'm going to keep doing this same thing I'm doing. And I'm going to estimate, you know, if we talk about, we're not going to talk about it too much today, but like, what are like reasonable estimates for growth over time? And we'll talk about this a little bit more next week. But if I was like, okay, I'm going to be conservative and say like, I expect a 5% growth over time, right? I can put those numbers in and these charts are going to show me, okay, with a, you know, I think these are maybe a 10% right now. With a 10% growth, this is what I should expect to see the numbers do year over year, right? This can be really helpful if I'm planning, but it can also be really helpful if I'm like, ooh, that's not quite as much as I had anticipated. I actually need that to be a little bit more. Let me tweak, like see if I can shift the expenses, or can I, how else could I increase income coming in to make that number bigger? And then down here, you'll see I don't have a ton of, I don't have any direct costs because I don't have like any physical products. And I also don't have like a physical location by any means, anything like that. And so mostly what I have are expenses, right? I have a lot of tech expenses, and that's essentially what all of these are. So I see that here. So that's going to now take me from like my revenue, what's coming in, my profit. Here's my loss. And then that's telling me what my operating income is. And what I like about Life Plan 2 is it's going to project my income taxes. So this is projecting like what I'm going to owe in taxes that year. From there, it's going to show me my net profit, and then it's also going to give me a percentage. So it's like, this is and you can look up online, and I'm happy to help you at another point in time, but you can look to see like on average, what's a good profit margin for my type of business. My type of business should have a pretty high profit margin because I have so few expenses, right? Or I should have probably so few expenses. This would obviously change if I had employees, right? And so that's where, you know, and that was something I navigated in my own business was like, oh, I added an employee and now this went down to like 40%, right? And so that the business itself was not making enough money to warrant the expense of a full-time employee. And that was like a decision I had to come to terms with. I'm going to pause there. Questions? My goodness. I knew I had way too much content. Yes, go ahead.
Is that me? Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's exactly, but yeah, that's exactly what that last sentence is exactly what I mean. The strategic decision making. You can't do that without really being able to see your dollars.
Exactly.
And my gut is usually aligned with what you just decided, but having the dollars to back it up is like, then it's replicatable, right?
Well,
There's like data.
And at the time, I didn't have the numbers, right? Like I went into that hire overly optimistic. A lot of folks out there are like, hire before you're ready. I don't know if you guys have heard this sentence, but it is prolific. And I don't necessarily agree with it at times. But I was like, okay, cool. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to make the leap. I'm going to hire. We're going to like grow, like the business will grow to meet the hire. And it grew, but it didn't grow enough. And I didn't have something like Live Plan. I hadn't written out all my numbers. I had, an idea of what it would take, how much we did need to make. But then even when we were making that, it still wasn't enough. And I was like, shit. Right. And so like, that's super stressful. And I think similar to you, I usually make decisions based off my gut. And at the time, like that wasn't a great example of making a decision based on my gut. Right. And so if I had the numbers, I would have seen like, nope, you're not actually ready. Like you do need to keep this person at part-time. We're not ready to make the jump to full-time.
And another example that I need to do, and I love this for the future business, but I need to decide whether to engage with a marketing person. And we're trying to decide whether it should be on a commission of sales. So I have a product-based business and then a feature like the service. And I actually, and this will be together with my husband, have to decide whether the sales to, I think Joanne just mentioned, is his work on a campaign going to generate enough profit that I can pay him a commission, because we don't have a budget to do that right now. So it's that's the kind of strategy that I need to be able to engage in, and I don't have the comfort with the numbers yet. And so that, again, that's why I'm here. But those are the kinds of decisions I need to make, and also gut, because so many people say, oh yes, graphic design and marketing, and I love those professions, but it can be overwhelming when you're a products-based business.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, 100%. Maris, go ahead.
Loss statement would provide what you need in order to calculate your deductions for your taxes, because the costs are there. Maybe not, because it's not specifically what's deduction allowed.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
But you would have a better idea
have to create two separate
I
ones?
like, I think. Well, and the other thing too is like a profit and loss statement is like, it's not necessarily of the entire year. It might just be of like a fiscal, it might be of like a quarter. So it might just be a snapshot in time. Yeah, Ren said you could generate the same stuff in QuickBooks and it would do deductions. So that's good to know. I think, like, I'm thinking about, like, for instance, are there things that, like, for instance, I didn't include in operating expenses, I didn't include like the amount of money I donate, which I probably could have, right? You know, I could put that in expenses. I could put like monthly donation.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, and there, you know, there are a lot of different tools out there. So if QuickBooks is working well for some of you, like, please, by all means, don't feel like you need to pick up something different. And awesome. Thanks for sharing, Ren. Let me, I'm just going to make a note, Maris.
yeah. In my dreams, they're the master spreadsheet.
I love that.
Yeah, I have a question about that too. So Maris,
Yeah.
are you speaking about like right now I'm tracking, and I guess I guess it is deductions. It's like I'm tracking on my spreadsheet in like Google Sheets, all the little things, all the specifics that are on the tax form. Because then I'm giving those numbers specifically to the person who helps me. But it is such like travel expenses or mileage or like
Yeah,
like all of those things. And so I am curious for a chart that would have them to be plugged in, because right now with Google, like the problem with Google spreadsheets is that it doesn't calculate, or I don't know how to work Excel enough to like make it calculate the like what I get, what are all my expenses like minus what I'm making, or what I'm making minus what I'm expending. Anyways, but like, so it's that internal math that I want, that I see Live Plan doing, but it doesn't seem like they have all the categories. Or maybe we can make the categories.
Yeah, so you make all of your own categories. So like, let's say if we a direct cost here. So you could say, for instance, like if we're thinking of like travel and mileage, that's like a specific question, right? Travel and mileage. Let me look.
Yeah, or professional development. Like I take a bunch of courses and then I'm like deducting those from my business.
Yeah, so that could be like a one-time amount, and you could have it assigned to a certain month versus like, I was also thinking like, I wonder, a varying amount over time. Yeah, totally, Ren. And that's where we're looking at the difference between a P&L sheet. And this is where, like, to be honest, full transparency, I started to get a little confused. I was like, wait, which one is for when? Versus like your budget versus your actuals. So in this one, I thought this was a great spreadsheet. If you are looking for spreadsheets that are like free, Smartsheet had so many different types of things, you could get a little lost. I pulled a couple that I thought were useful. But for instance, like we can put travel expenses in here. And then we can compare that to actual, right? And so like you can put in what you're like budgeting, what you're hoping to do. versus your actual expenses versus, what's actually happening and coming together. I agree, Ren. Live Plan tends to be more like projection focused. Whereas QuickBooks, I would assume, is more like the actual numbers and a little bit, maybe more of like historical data. That being said, Live Plan will start to show you historical data as you put it in, right? You should be able to see over time. Like if I bring, sorry, I have to keep moving your guys' faces around here. Like I should be able to see over time what's happening. And we'll talk about this a little bit next week with projections, right? Do I have peaks throughout the year that I want to anticipate? And then therefore, do I have lulls throughout the year that I need to anticipate? Okay, I'm realizing that we're going to need a lot more time for the rest of our documents, which is totally fine. We have all the time in the world. There's no hurry here to move through this. I think what I would love to do, because I want to be respectful of y'all's time, what I'd love to do is press pause here. We'll just have the reports. You have this folder, and I'll send it out to you in the replay. What I'd like to do is give you a week to play with these. If you want to sign up for a Live Plan and put the numbers in there, awesome. If you want to use some of these, awesome. And then I think what I'd like to do is just pick up next week where we're leaving off. And we'll keep going through some of these documents and talk a little bit about, for instance, the balance sheets versus the P&L statement. How do I know when I need one versus the other? You'll have all the different documents you can look at. I'm also happy to send this slide deck out right now. And you can kind of poke through a little bit. But I think rather than, I don't want to rush or crunch anything because that doesn't feel good. Let's press pause and we'll just reconvene next week with this. And honestly, if we need to add a fourth session, if we need to go for 4 weeks to cover all the material, we can do that. There's really there's no hurry. How does that sound? Cool. Yeah. Okay. That feels good to me. I don't want to like move us faster than we need to go. Resist urgency everywhere you go. Okay. Let's press pause there. We'll come back. If you want to sign up for Live Plan, I'll throw this in here. You can, yes, exactly. Resist urgency. If you want to sign up for Live Plan, feel free to use that if you want. You do not need to. You can also just use, I'll put the link for our tools in here one more time. Copy link, put that in there. We'll start there. I say either pick Live Plan or pick one of these, like pick just the profit and loss statement and play with it this next week. That's your homework. Pick Live Plan or pick profit and loss statement from here. There's 2 of them, this one and this one. Pick one of those and fill it out and we'll go from there next week. Sound good? Cool. All right. You guys are amazing. We'll see you next week. If you need, if for any reason you're not signed up for the next workshop, there's a link for that. So you can hop in there. Okay, cool. I'll see you next week. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.